Hello friends, and welcome back to Random Hearts, and welcome to our backyard. Today is the day we are going to begin planting in our garden. We have had overnight lows that are nowhere near freezing for the last 2 weeks, and if we hadn't already been on vacation, I probably would have started planting out about a week ago. Our extended 10-day forecast puts us well beyond our last frost date, and we have nothing that I'm worried about. So I am ready to start planting. We are going to begin by putting some of our transplants from the seeds that we grew indoors. These will all be cool weather crops. I'm not quite ready to put out my tomatoes or my peppers yet, but we will be putting some transplants into our garden today. We will also be doing some direct sowing. So let's just go ahead and get started with this, and I'll show you what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to begin by working with my master plan that I created. I believe we did this in February. And I know I need to get peas in the ground back here. So we've got a new pea trellis, and we're going to go ahead and put that together so we know right where that needs to be. And then I'm going to be putting in some of our winter boar kale, and I'm also going to be putting in some lettuce over in this bed. So let's go ahead and put the trellis together. This is the tall, expandable pea trellis from Gardener Supply. This is the 64-inch height version, and this one was a little bit too long for our garden bed, so we did take out one section, but it did prove to be a little more difficult to put together than we had originally planned, and it did require both of us. The top section has to align into each of the bottom section pieces, and so it was very cumbersome, and because of its height, I do suggest having 2 people. So we got the pea trellis in, but I can see that this is going to probably be some problematic concerns for us. First of all, this is really, really tall, and which is what I need for my peas, but it's also very flimsy. And because of our wind, I'm a little concerned by that. I also think we're going to move this sign, because this year, if peas do go up all the way on this trellis, you won't see that sign anyway. But we're going to go ahead and stake this into the garden bed, and then I will go ahead and start planting. So we're going to begin by planting these super sugar snap peas. I've planted these a couple of years in a row now. They are getting to be pretty old seeds, but they do pretty well in our climate. I'm going to put these about every 6 inches. They want 2 rows, so I'm going down about 1 inch. Then I'm going to put another back here on the back side of this trellis and another on the front side, about 1 inch. And I'm just going to keep doing that all the way down. This tool is part of my square foot gardening template, and it has measurements on it, so I know exactly how deep I'm going. Now that I've got my hole, I'm going to go ahead and put my seed down in the ground and cover it. And that is all there is to that. Peas and beans are some of the easiest seeds to plant because they are so large, but you do need to be careful that birds do not attack these before they germinate. I'm going to be putting my winter boar kale in this section here. So I'm going to go ahead, I've already marked out my center point. I'm going to go ahead and dig my hole for that. Kale requires approximately 1 square foot of space per plant. So I did use my template, and I figured out 1 square foot, found the center, and I am putting these in that center. You will notice that I am taking off some of the lower leaves. That is just to help the plant promote more growth on the top. I've also got a couple of leaves that were damaged through wind, and so I am going to remove those as well. I don't want the plant focusing so much on repairing those issues as much as growing. So this bed right here, I am going to be putting 2 of these winter boar kale. You will notice that I do not have a different variety of kale. I did have some issues with that winter sow method. When I went to transplant the curly leaf kale, they did not do so hot. And so that is just part of gardening. Some things work, some things do not, and you just kind of got to go with flow and make it work. So all of my kale this year will be the winter boar. We have now moved on to the front of this bed. We are right in front of the kale, and I am adding 2 square feet of radishes in this section. I do have 2 different varieties, and I am just using my template right here to make my holes. I need about 1/2 inch of depth on these particular seeds. These are the Rover radish from Johnny Seeds, and I'm just using that template and the pusher to make the holes. Now, there is about a 97% germination rate on these seeds. They are brand new, and I really was hesitant even putting 2 seeds in the hole. I probably could have just put 1, but radish seeds are kind of on the small side, and it is difficult sometimes with smaller seeds to keep those just at 1. And so I'm adding 2 seeds to each hole. I'm going to go ahead and cover those up and lightly press them down and then add water. I want to make sure I'm watering in all these plants. I am working on kind of a cool day, and so I'm not really worried about it right now. But when I am all finished with the tasks today, I will go through and water everything in. I am hoping that by starting my seeds earlier this year, especially with this radish, that I do get a better germination rate. Last year, I really struggled with radishes, and typically radishes are some of the easiest and most simple plants to grow. And in fact, if you are a new gardener and it is something you want to try out, I suggest radishes. These are a very short season crop. This particular variety that I am planting is a 21-day, meaning that once these plants germinate and I start seeing some sprouts in the ground, I should have approximately 21 days until I can harvest that produce. So that is a very quick turnaround, but you do need cool weather. I am in the same bed, but I have just moved to the left of the kale and the radishes. I am putting in some holes here for these lettuce transplants. Now, I began these lettuce indoors on the 23rd of April, and if I had known that our weather was going to be this mild this spring and into the first part of May, I probably would have just started these as seed in the ground. But that is part of living in Wyoming. You just never know. And so I am planting these transplants. This is the Waldman's dark green lettuce. They are a head lettuce. So I am putting 4 per square foot, and hopefully they will do well. They are a little bit in the sun here, and that is not typically where I like to put lettuce, but we'll see how they do. I've now moved to the left-hand side of that lettuce, and I did skip a section so that I can put some beans in later. I am putting in spinach here. We have 9 per square foot, and I'm putting 2 seeds in each hole. I am not planning on harvesting this as baby spinach. I do plan on letting it get to full size. Now, this is also a 25-day to maturity plant, and so if this does grow, it will be very quick turnaround. We have now moved to the bed that is directly under that elm tree in my far corner of my yard. This is a neighbor's tree that does give me quite a lot of problems with its roots because it doesn't get water from the neighbor, and so it does come into my yard to get that water. I am planting some beets in this bed, and 2 years ago I did have beets in this bed in the front of the bed, and they did not do super well. I had a lot of sun scorching and problems. But I'm hoping that because I'm planting these early on in the season and I have new seeds, that I might get a better production. We are in the same bed that I planted the beets. I did plant some kale, some more winterboard kale in this bed right before this lettuce, but we are getting ready to transplant this lettuce. This is the Summer Crisp, and they were planted indoors on the 23rd of April as well. They are doing quite well, and again, if I had known we would have more mild temperatures towards the start of May and towards the end of May, I would have planted these directly out in our ground. Honestly, our weather has been so weird this year. We had a very late frost last fall and immediately went into winter conditions. And then this spring, same thing. We had winter that lasted well into the first month of spring and very, very cold temperatures. And then all of a sudden it just basically shut off and we got warmer temps. We immediately started defrosting and thawing, and now I am planting before our last frost date, and quite a ways before that last frost date. So this has been a strange weather season for us, and I'm hoping that I don't regret planting things this early in the ground, but most of this is okay because it is cool weather crops. I'm in the same bed that I just planted that lettuce. You'll see that in the background to the right. But I am planting 3 of those golden acre green cabbage in here, right in the middle of the bed. You can see that the wind is starting to pick up here a little, and so I am trying to be a little more quick. I did not film the red cabbage as I put that in. It will be the same process. I am just taking them out of their little transplant containers and putting them into the ground at ground level. Now, I do want to be careful. Some of the leaves are a little low on these, and if they do break, just take them off. The plant will recover from 1 or 2 leaves missing. But the important thing is to make sure that you are not planting these too deep. You want them at the same level as the soil in the pot. We have now moved on to the bed that has our garlic in it, and I am going to be adding these onions to that bed. I've got a small section right in the middle here that I want to plant these bulb onions. These are the Frontier. They were not looking their best. In fact, I probably should have planted these into the ground before we left on vacation. I had no idea, though, that the weather would stay this nice, and that's just something I deal with every single year when I go out into my garden. But I did have someone watering my plants and keeping an eye on them, but they are not as knowledgeable as I am with plant health. And so she had no idea that these were not doing well. And I do not blame her for that. I just, it's something that you learn as you go. And if I had been home, I would have seen that they were starting to struggle, and I would have immediately put them out into the garden. But I am planting them out. I'm hoping that they will bounce back. And if they don't, you know, it's a lesson learned. I had really good luck with this variety last year when I planted them. And so I'm hoping that I will get the same results this year. But that's all I'm going to do in this section right here. I do have some carrots planned for in this same bed, and I just did not have time to record all that. The weather was just not cooperative. Well, if you can't tell, it's already the next day. We did get pushed out of the garden fairly quickly yesterday. About 1 o'clock, we had a storm roll through. We had some really gusty winds, and I actually had to be very quick towards the end of planting because we did get some heavy winds and some rain. So I wanted to show you what we did yesterday, what we got accomplished. We got quite a bit planted. This bed right here, this 3x6 bed, is completely planted now. I do have Omero red cabbage in the front row here. I also have some green golden acre cabbage right behind that. And then I've got some head lettuce. That is the Summer Crisp Fusion head lettuce. I've got a couple of winter boar kale here. That winter boar kale was the only kale that actually made it. The stuff that we put into the winter sowing method did not transplant well. And so I was unable to keep those. In the other side of the bed here, I did plant some bolero carrots and 2 different varieties of beets. This bed is also completely full. Now, this one was almost taken up. Half of it was taken up last year when we planted the garlic. This is a hardneck variety called Music, and I only had 2 bulbs that did not come up. So I have about 30 bulbs of garlic growing here right now. I'm very impressed by it. Yesterday, I did plant our Frontier bulb onions, and yes, they are looking pretty sad today, but I think they'll bounce out of that. I did have a few extras right here, so I did put those in between the garlic, and hopefully that will do well. On the back side of this right here, I do have some carrots. Those are the Ruby Pack carrots, and on the front side, I have another variety of carrots. They are a half-long nonnets. I think that's how you say it. In this bed right here, we really didn't do too much yesterday. In fact, we didn't do anything. We have a couple of perennial plants in here. I've got chives and I've got strawberries. And basically this bed is just waiting for those warmer weather crops. I've got some tomatoes planned for in this area and a couple of other things. Now down to this bed right here, we did put quite a bit of stuff in this bed. I got our pea trellis put in, and we were very sporadic with the peas that we planted yesterday. What I want to do as soon as those come up, I want to plant a succession planting right behind them wherever there's holes. So once they start coming up and we start seeing some plants, I will plant a few more. On the front here, I do have some more of that winter boar kale. I've got 2 more, so I've got a total of 4. That should be more than enough for our little family of 2. And then I've also got some radishes right here. I've got some cherry radishes and some rover radishes. The rovers are new to me. I have never planted those before. We'll see if those come up. I did have trouble last year with radishes. And I've also got some Waldman's dark lettuce here. Those are also head lettuce. And then this section right here, this section is some space spinach. I am saving these 2 sections right here, these 2 square foot sections, for bush beans, which we will not plant until our soil is a little warmer. This bed in front of me is my last-ditch effort yesterday to get anything into the ground before the wind was causing too many problems. In fact, when I planted these evergreen bunching onions, it was so windy I didn't even film. But I did get those into the ground. This is one of my most sun exposure beds, and so this one I usually reserve for those hotter weather items like tomatoes or peppers or jalapenos, but I think that's where we're going to leave this video today. I am going to show you a little bit of what the yard looks like right now. We were gone for about a week, and my last garden video, we had toured the yard and nothing was really blooming yet. I had a few things starting, and we came back, and 1 week later we had leaves on trees, we had blooms everywhere, and we're actually getting to the point where they're starting to peter out a little, and we need to start cutting some of those bulbs down. But I just want to show you what is going on in the yard. I want to thank you for joining us today. As we planted these things into our garden, it feels so good to finally be getting something out into the garden. We've been working on this for months now, and so this feels really great to get that to the point. So I hope that if you have enjoyed this video, you will give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, I hope you will consider subscribing to our channel for more videos like this and a few other random things along the way. So we appreciate you being here. We hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon.